And okay, so good morning, everybody. This is Cello. I'm gonna make things really brief as far as introduction, because we have a couple of speakers that I would be very eager for you to hear. So the agenda today will be the two speakers discussing about future events and open discussion. So this is the WEF WISE focus group, which is under the utility management community, and you can find this if you go to the WEF website for the communities, and they will have a way for you to go then to the focus group. They used to call communities, they used to call them committees, and now their communities, and focus group used to be subcommittees. So that's what it is. And there are three things that we're looking at: change management, process improvement, and technology integration. So our first speaker will be Ramona Harry, and she's from City of Baltimore. Would appreciate if she can give you a little bit of an introduction of herself, and also she will be talking about change management. So Ramona, take it over.
Good morning. My name is Ramona Harry. I am with the Baltimore City Mayor's Office of Infrastructure Development. When I started with this change management group, I was the Chief of Operations for the Baltimore City Department of Public Works Water Wastewater Bureau. But I have continued my journey with Cello and the WEF WISE program. Cello, we can. So I'm going to be talking about change management today and what change management means to the water utilities. So basic information, what is change management, right? It takes you from your as-is state to what you want it to be in the future. And it guides you through getting to that end. Change management essentially guides your organization through the change process. It helps to minimize resistance and maximize engagement and adoption by your workforce and your organization. And change management is most effective if it's started with a change readiness assessment. We need to assess how ready is your organization for moving forward. Tell. And let's talk about some of the components. There are definite components to every change management initiative, and we'll talk about all of the different systems out there for change management and what we looked at. So it starts with strategic planning. Identify the need for change and what your objectives are. So have a clear vision of where it is you want to be. Then it takes leadership and sponsorship. Who's going to initiate this? Sometimes the person that raises the initiative can either make or break that initiative going forward. Communication. How do we communicate transparently to our organization what it is we want to do, when we're going to do it? And we need to make sure that that communication is clear to explain the reasons for our change and the benefits and impacts of that change. Training and education. Change management is a process, and we need to train our workforce on what that looks like, educate them about change management and how it can benefit the organization. As we're developing our strategy, we need to make sure that you engage all of the stakeholders and the right people are in the room. Sometimes you can get to modifying a process and you realize that one key person was never involved and you have to start over again. Then as you make those changes, you must go back and monitor and evaluate the change to see if there needs to be any additional modifications. So evolution of change management, and I may date myself. So I go back to the days of the Change Acceleration Project, or CAP, from GE. And as you can see, GE has gone over the years and it has developed and modified its own change initiative. They have gone from the workout sessions and team meetings going all the way to modifying it to Lean Six Sigma in 2005 and all of the iterations. And then they talk about what is effective, the effective change equation. So qualitative and technical solutions times the acceptance and engagement will give you your overall effectiveness. We as a team working with WEF-WISE looked at many different change initiatives, GE CAP being one of them, and how it evolved into Lean Six Sigma. And Cello? We also looked at other frameworks. So the state of California actually wrote an entire book on the organizational change management framework for California for the Department of Technology. There's a standard of change management that's written by the Association of Change Management Professionals. We looked at lean transformation services. We looked at ADKAR, Cotter's 8-step, Lewin's change management model, which is a 3-stage. And each one of these methodologies has a different way of implementing change and implementing, moving from that as is to be state. What we wanted to know is, how do each of these work with a utility? How do they work with a water or wastewater utility and make it effective in those complex situations? Cello? So, the hard truth about business model innovation. The only types of innovation you can perform naturally within an existing business model are those that build on and improve the existing model and accelerate its progress, right? So it's normally the priorities. What's the organization's value proposition and what's their profit formula? And how does that match up with their resources and their technology, products, facilities, and their process to facilitate the change within the organization or the value that it comes out of those processes. So what are our takeaways? What were our takeaways from looking at all of these things? Well, change management is a process. Key success factors are related to people and the organization. Approaches, solutions need to be compatible with the dominant paradigm and constraints in the water sector utilities, and change management is an iterative process. Methodology for improvement shall include components that are people, process, and technology that can be integrated into change management. So essentially, change management is the lace that ties the boot up of all of the things that we want to do to move forward from the as is to be state. What are the benefits of change management? Informed decision making. Provides leaders with the necessary insights into making informed decisions about change initiatives. The increased success rate. It enhances the likelihood of successful change implementation by addressing potential issues beforehand. Employee buy-in. Improves employee engagement and buy-in by identifying and mitigating resistance factors. Continuous improvement. It fosters a culture of continuous improvement by regularly assessing and refining change management practices. And it's risk mitigation to help identify and mitigate risks associated with change initiatives. So that assessment is critical to figure out where you are with your organization and how do you motivate them to move forward. The challenge of implementing a change management methodology in the public sector. Well, in private sector, you look at all of the benefits and financial benefits that can be implied for the workforce and organization. In the public sector, you're dealing with a lot of the same issues, but you also are dealing with operations and water quality compliance. You're dealing with building, you're dealing with citizens. How do you manage rates? So there are a lot of political portions and portions of change management that are going to impact the citizens that you serve. So on the road to success of change management, we call these the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. If resistance to change will stop you in your tracks, insufficient resources, you've got to make sure that you have the right resources in order to move forward with your change management plan. And poor communication. If you don't get your message out, then you will not be able to accomplish the things that you set out to do. And then the lack of leadership support, the person that raises the initiative and supports the initiative, is key to moving forward. In public sector, the end user perception is one of the things that in our surveys was the greatest pause as our utilities wanted to implement some change. They wanted to know the why. There's a lack of trust, lack of clear communication in most change initiatives, the follow through as administrations change, the thought process and the initiatives change. So sometimes there's only a short period of time or a window before our guidance changes to where leadership wants to go. Leadership engagement, the 7 R's are always an issue. What's the reason? What are the risks? What are the resources? Who raised this? Is that person going to help it move forward, or is that going to be a hindrance? What's the return? And where does the responsibility and lay, and what are the relationships to our everyday activities? So these are some of the end user perceptions for our utilities when they're trying to do this in a public sector. An overemphasis on spreadsheets, technology, and checkboxes, too little emphasis on organizational culture and people. And as you can see, there's a theme. It always comes back to the organizational culture and the people aspect of change. So what's the critical path? Conducting a change management capabilities assessment is a critical step for organizations aiming to navigate change effectively. It provides a comprehensive understanding of current capabilities, identifies areas for improvement, and lays the groundwork for a structured and successful change management strategy. What's the value proposition for a public entity? So for the public utilities, we can't offer financial incentives or bonuses for improving our process, for improving our delivery to our citizens. It is impossible for us to make it a financial benefit for our workforce and our organization as individuals. So how do you accomplish that? Better service delivery for our citizens. Improved process, better performance and systems lead to better service delivery for the public, enhancing the organization's reputation and public trust. Sustainable success. Successful change initiatives ensure the organization can meet future challenges and continue to fulfill its mission effectively. Increased employee engagement. Involving employees in the change process can increase their commitment and reduce resistance. Galvanizing that workforce is where you can make the largest impact. Enhance the adaptability. Organizations become more agile and better equipped to handle future changes. Overall, change management is essential for ensuring that organizational changes are implemented successfully with minimal disruption and maximum positive impact. Public servants and overall organizational culture. The acknowledgement of active participation in change initiatives can lead to recognition and rewards from management. That is one of the leading benefits of the value proposition for a public sector. Leadership opportunities give the workforce, based on their active participation, it can open up leadership opportunities and a career advancement by demonstrating initiatives and capability. Adaptability enhances the ability to adapt to new systems, processes, and roles, making it more valuable to their organization and improving job security. Clarity and communication, participating ensures that employees are well informed and understand the changes, reducing uncertainty and stress. And then support systems, we have to put those in. Structured change management provides support systems such as training, resources, and counseling to help employees navigate the transition smoothly. So we did some surveys in 2021 of national utilities. What we found was that out of a score of 1 to 10, and Cello may be able to correct me if it was 1 to 5, I do think it was 1 to 10, most utilities and the workforce felt that guidelines were not well documented, that they were not many people who were trained or certified in one of the common methodologies for change management, and that most of the important projects did not have a change management plan. So why are we trying to do change management specific to water utilities? Well, it's a process that aims to improve utility management through innovative strategies and methodologies. The initiative is part of the Utility Management Community Work Group program, and the methodology provides a structured approach to addressing the complexities of managing utilities based on industry insights and best practices. In summary, a targeted methodology dedicated to fostering innovation and strategic thinking in utility management. Our collaborative approach to utility-specific model would be the most beneficial. First, learning by example and applying a method in practice. Second, collaboration and learning from peers. 3, change readiness assessments. 4th would be guidelines for change management. 5th, selecting an effective approach and method and artifacts that are shared across utilities. These are all of the benefits of us creating a specific utility methodology that we can all work from. Effectively, this change management methodology would go smack in the middle of that value proposition and profit formula and the capabilities of resources and processes. We would use this methodology to bridge the gap between the two sections. How do we make those changes in people and process and the intelligent water systems, monitor and consistently improve them? So it reflects the little bit too fast there, Cello. It reflects the priorities that are specific to water sector utilities and takes a system thinking view of interactions between people, organizations, process, and technology. And what are our outcomes? Clear roles and responsibilities and expectations for all parties, the sponsor, the team leader, team members, any CAP coaches or others, a well-defined scope of work for the project that all parties understand and are committed to achieving, and an effective project execution structure and process. So overall, what this work group or focus group would be working on is how do we help providing all of those items to our utilities and learning from each other and working with each other to get through our change management initiatives.
Before we go to our next speaker, I want to see if anybody has any questions for Ramona, any thoughts to offer? If not, you can also put it, if you have comments and questions that can be addressed later, if you think of, oh, Mark. You're unmute, please.
There we go. Thanks, Ramona. Great presentation. And that's one of the things, I'll just make a comment, perhaps a question, but one of the things I've seen is that there's a ton of change models out there. And I think one of the things you have to consider is and you touched on this, and that's what's right for your organizational culture in particular. Have you, where you're working, have you settled on a model, and what were the benefits of that?
So for the water utilities, they have not settled on a model. The city as a whole does embrace the lean. We do have training for lean in some parts, some infrastructure organizations, but as a whole, we have not settled on a model. And I think in looking at the research, no one model really fits all of an organization as large as a city. You kind of have to break it down and see which one works for which part of the organization and which one works best. I think when you try to implement something unilaterally, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's the particularly in the public sector side where we typically have such long tenure. If you want this change to stick, you have to have a plan, and really appreciate you kind of walking us through that today. But it's really true. People, I one of the first things that happened to me when I was walking around my last employer, Clean Water Services, somebody didn't know who I was, and I introduced myself and was talking to them for a while, and yeah, he apparently had a bit of a sour attitude about new managers, and said to me, "Well, I was here when you got here, and I'll be here when you leave." That so there's a lot of that that's kind of embedded, but I kind of had the last laugh on that one because he retired before I left. But anyway, it's just really true. You just have to be patient and just stick with it. So,
yeah.
Thanks, Ramona.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that assessment for organizational culture and our people assessment that we developed. I think those help with coming up with, you start with your change management assessment, and then you do your people and your organizational culture surveys so that you know what you're working with before you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that really helps people get ready too. It's like, oh, maybe they're serious this time.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ramona. We're going to go to the next speaker, Deb Rose. We're glad to have you and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Cello. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that I was asked to be here as a participant today and present. I'm with Environmental Services at Metropolitan Council. I've been the Asset Management Manager for initiatives since 2018, and Ramona talked about culture change, and it's so true. All of the things that you have to get through, and all of the different nuances and things that you have to do. And for my presentation today, I just want to focus mostly on process, and that's what we'll do. Go ahead. So just a quick retrospect. In 2006, 2007, we actually did an assessment for under the area of asset management to start our journey. And so there was an agreement to do that. The agreement, when we finished doing that assessment, there were some areas that were a focus, and that is that we should, in our engineering area, we should have business case evaluations. So we managed to do the training. We managed to set up, a tool that would help with how do we do those business case, and how do we make decisions on business case. And then we also, where I actually have a focus is facility teams. And in the facility teams, they're across our organization. They're at each of our plants. And its participants talk about the collaboration piece. This is one of the areas that we wanted to have, is the collaboration piece, is that it includes operations, maintenance, engineering, process engineering, PCG, our water resources or water quality, safety. It includes everybody, so that when there are things that we're looking at, there is a cross-functional group that gets to discuss it and talk about what to change and when to change. And then there was a reliability centered maintenance so the operational focus. We had a steering team coordinator. That was me. And I think when you just change the name to initiatives, it's all the same. You still have to have somebody who coordinates it. And even though the leadership wanted to do this, one of the things that we needed to engage was the mid-management, and we needed to have some decision making. It's in this area, in the whole part of asset management and what you want to do, whether it's change or the processes, the systems, the people, you need to have the realistic resources and then be able to have accomplishments. And one of the big focuses, not only then, but it continues, is the processes. Go ahead. So we've done the same thing. We've looked at lots of tools. We've looked at lots of techniques, looked at lots of possibilities, lots of methodologies, and not one specific one really stuck per se, but they're all of these different areas, whether it's WEF, IAM, the Institute of Asset Management, and the tools of Uberlytics for criticality or ISO 55000. All of these areas have such similarities. It's what you were talking about before, Mark, and it's talking about, well, when do you apply something and where and how do you determine whether it's appropriate? Go ahead. And so we've explored and we continue to explore the universe, and we look at, all right, what are these things and what do we want to put into our basically our galaxy of work, and where what framework do we want to use? And so we take all of these things and we say, where do you start? Well, it's not necessarily that you can just focus on a start when it comes to asset management, but the areas that we finally found in exploring our universe and getting to, and here's where Ramona talked about, well, you need to do an assessment, a readiness assessment. For us, not only was it the readiness assessment, it was also the where should we focus? Where are our important gaps, and what would be the opportunities? Go ahead. And even though the universe, if we want to have our Milky Way of our portion of the Milky Way, it is still process, people, technology, and you can't have one exclusive of another. And we found that through the task forces that have been working on what methodologies and how do we create something that is beneficial to everyone. There's the focus on the one tool in particular. Go ahead. So within the concept of the framework, that's our focus. That brings us together. That says we can't be in our silos. And if you look at that, it can be a silo. It's you can have a people silo and you can focus just on the people, or you can have a process silo, or you can have a technology silo. And in a lot of organizations, if we think about it, that's what we have. We have silos, and for us, we've deemed them the silos of excellence. And so if you focus on one without incorporating the others or acknowledging the others and working with that, you're going to get what is considered just to be that silo, and you're going to have nothing. It's not going to work as well as if you're doing the holistic. You're taking the universe and you're putting it into a system. Go ahead. Otherwise, you can't get the change. So the change is in that all revolving, but you can't get to that all revolving if we're not using a central methodology. So we want to take the system, which is the whole organization, the business, and we look at how we are, how we're put together, who our workforce is, and what their needs are, and doing assessments help us to do that. And there are valuable assessments as part of the WEF framework. The business methodology, the technology that goes with that helps assist us in how we want to make progress. And then in the end, the way that we can help ourselves to make the change. And in the framework, go ahead with the methodology, the next. You have, you can't get to improvement necessarily if we don't have all of these different, we don't have this cycle. And Ramona talked about it. You have to have a strategic plan. You have to have a focus. If you're going to try to implement, you need to know what you have to implement. What are the gaps? What are the strategies? What people need? What resources we need? And so you need to design that, and you can't design it if you haven't analyzed it. So the methodology gives us those opportunities and those tools through the WEF task forces and the work that people have done to get to where we can start that journey of planning and implementing and improving. But you have to keep doing, go ahead, next slide. You have to keep doing the design, because you're redesigning every time that you are working on what you're trying to get to, that change. You always have to consider, where are we at? So you're assessing, you're analyzing what worked, what didn't work, and what's the I don't want to say complete redesign, but it's an adjustment. Go ahead for the next one. And how do we do that? And we need to understand through assessing ourselves, where are we at, and how well could we do in a change environment. But it's, for us, it focused on processes and what could we use, what models, what support can we get, and also the tools. Here's the one tool that we're finding that is something that is easy for people to understand and to not so much I'd call implement, but it's really accept. Go ahead, next one. So it has to do with, we know that everybody has the expertise, everybody has skills, they have the knowledge, and they have it as an individual because of their job. There's one part of the silo that I talked about earlier. Then we put them into teams, and we have a collective if we put them into teams. But what does that collective do? It still is just a lot of things out there, a lot of knowledge, a lot of discussion. If we don't put it into something, we can't get to continuous improvement, and we can't quantify anything if we don't have, and here's the central piece, artifacts. Collecting the artifacts and using those artifacts to help us to move forward into change. And we're talking about changing processes or creating processes for change. And go ahead, next one. And when we talk about that, we found that the ISO standard model of process modeling, business process modeling, is perfect for us. Why is it perfect? Because it gives us what everybody teachers tell you need. You need to have the visual, you need to have the hands-on, and you need, so all of those pieces that you need in order to make the change, to help people to understand where to go and understand why you want to get there, and to be involved in that change. And this we've found in our organization. You mentioned it earlier, that, well, how do we make people change, or how do we get to that change? It's hard to get agreement when you have different levels in the organization of people. We're in a right now at environmental services. We're in the process of, we have a lot of new people coming on board, but we also have still the old culture. How are we going to get to where we can be effective in making changes and getting work done and moving the organization forward from reactive to proactive? And the key we found right now is, if we're going to use the business process model, go ahead, you can get to the next one. And what does that do for us? It's a standard methodology, a standard tool that provides that for us. So we can say, I'll give you an example, that we want to look at. We're looking at our very, let's say incinerators are one of our critical pieces of equipment / assets. Well, how am I going to be able to get people to understand that the way that that's being managed, or that there's a concern about how it's operating, because they're in the day to day? How do I get them to be concerned and to change, to want to change? Well, the process modeling does that. So we get the who do we need. It's easy to figure out who we need. We need maintenance, we need operations, we need management. Then what is that? So this standard tool gives us how the workflow. We document the workflow. Here's our artifacts. Now we're starting to gather our artifacts. What is it we need? Who is it we need? And what is it that happens? How do we manage this? Because when you sit down with people, what I'm finding, and our facility teams are our perfect receptacle for that. You can ask somebody, well, what do you do? Oh, I don't know. If I have a work order, I just go take care of it. If I have a preventive maintenance to do, I do that, and then I move on. This workflow gives us that visual each time. It helps us to know what we're doing, and it helps with the decision making. So if something has to change, we get it identified through the artifacts, we get identified through the workflow, and we can discuss. We have a discussion about, should we change anything? Does anything need to be changed? How do we change it? And we can then say, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to need this type of technology, which is, or we're going to need more resources to do that. And you can then identify through that where are you right now, and where should you be, and you can get agreement. Go ahead to the next one. So it is an effective way to help an organization at any level work towards change, because what we're doing is we're saying, how do we do business? Let's get this down. Who handles this? Who handles that? How do we do that? When do we do that? And what do we need to do that? So it gives us the steps along the way. So it's like, plotting out, if you're going on a vacation in your car, plotting that out on your map and identifying what you're going to need in order to take along that journey. And how will we know when we achieve each of those? That's our metrics. And the decision making is set within that model. And we can know that we've accomplished something. We can have the documentation and the governance that goes with that, and we can leverage change through the metrics, through the decision making, through the artifacts, the documentation. We can leverage that, whether it's monthly or yearly, or however it's done. We have those artifacts, we have the decisions because of those, and we can keep moving the organization forward, because we can always use that as, hey, this is what we said we were going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Do we need to change, or are we good? Next. So it takes us along that maturity, it gets us that maturity that we need. We start out with, we know we have some gaps, and we can identify that we're going to have some people problems because we've done an assessment. And whether you're change ready, you don't necessarily have to be. You can be on the low end of the maturity scale, because you can bring people along through this business process modeling into the change management, and there's less dragging their feet, there's less fighting, because they're all a part of it. Go ahead. And I think I'm getting close. So we have our maturity model. What do we need in the maturity model? We need the organizational pieces. We need the strategy, the values, the accountability, and the reward and recognition. There's nothing better for a lot of people. They call them the wrench turners, the people on the ground doing the work. There's nothing better than they have the feeling. You don't actually have to have a pizza party. It's the knowledge. It's that they something actually changed, and they probably thought they'd never see it in their lifetime, but something actually changed and they were a part of that change, and so they have a legacy. And this whole process of process modeling provides the feedback, the communication, the engagement, and the collaboration that's needed. And so you can start really low and you can get pretty high pretty fast by working with the business process model. Go ahead. And again, the assessments help us determine, are we low, are we high, are we moving forward? And so we always want to use that to gauge where we're at, and we can do that through discussions. We don't have to have big, heavy duty, lengthy assessments. We can utilize the categories, we can utilize pieces, and we can model and show each other how we're changing, and that provides the value. Go ahead. And here's just being able to assign values to statements. So you can ask the questions and you can rate them, and you don't have to have a whole big long assessment process. It starts with a long assessment process generally, but as you go along, you can ask the questions and you can determine then how quickly you're moving forward and making change and getting somewhere, or if you have areas, and this is perfect in the assessment areas, you have leadership, communication, change process, change process. You can see very quickly through the answers you get by asking the questions. So Cello did a great job of helping me with this to show an example of, yeah, we're not so good in this area, but we're okay in that, and so let's focus on the reds, obviously, because we're not doing very well. So you can focus each time you get people together. So it's not something you have to do in a great big lengthy process. You can do that in pieces and move the organization forward. Go ahead. So lastly, our lessons learned, and I think I have one to mention that I didn't have on there. The value proposition to this is you're going to get more engagement at the level that you need engagement from the people who are working day to day, and also the mid-level management. And so they're able to make decisions. The resource needs and accomplishments are more realistic and more timely. That in and of itself, in an organization like ours, allows us to have top management support because they're seeing the change, they're hearing about the change, there's support for the change, and they're going to go along with the change as long as we're not hurting the environment or doing something that's illegal. They're going to be all for it because they're not having to do the hard work. The hard work's already getting done for them. So we can identify areas of change really easily through the business methodology. It's a very effective tool for helping to move forward without really in a way that is supportive of the work that people are doing. And so it's not trying to change the world because we're looking at processes. It's changing just that small patch one at a time, one process at a time, one model at a time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb and Ramona. We're going to go to questions now. You can type it into the chat line, or you can raise your hand so that we can address this. Usually, this is very informative for us as well to get some feedback on how you think, how folks see this. Are there any questions? Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Great presentation. So I wanted to just emphasize your point about the mid managers. When we were pursuing a change initiative at Clean Water Services, we were trying to do some things differently. We brought a bunch of different work groups together from our cylinders of excellence. And what we found was actually the staff, in this case, it was mostly engineering staff, but there was engineering scientists. At the staff level, they were very amenable to changing processes, working together, working across the different groups. But as we broke the groups into the different levels of management, it got more and more difficult to do things differently. And so I think that's an important thing, that at least so to just amplify your point, those folks need to be brought in because they got to where they are. They're successful based on the current system. And then now you're proposing to change it. So it's definitely a very important part of in managing the change and in trying to improve processes. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Dan Ott.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Deb. Great presentation. I too am a fan of the business process modeling and have experienced that as a catalyst to change, just to kind of tie it to the change management presentation. But yeah, the question I have for you, I've had the opportunity to create several of these, and it sounds like you guys have created a lot of these business process models. What kind of resources do you guys have? Do you have some folks in-house that are trained on doing that? Because sometimes I found it's challenging to stick to the standard, if you will. And maybe you've diverged from the standard a bit on some of your process models. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. Actually, we haven't done any of that diverging. Instead, there is a small cadre of people who have already been gone through the instruction by Mike Barnett, and we created like a little group that they can get together, they can learn from each other, they can support each other, and Mike has been really helpful in continuous support for us as well. The only thing that we're still missing and we're developing is, and that this goes along with, we have to get a new CMMS, and we're doing it as a larger organization, as a council, instead of just focused on environmental services. And so there's a governance that we need yet to put. So we need that umbrella, but we have people who are ready, willing, and able, and doing some of the work. And the more people that we can get involved, the better off. And I know that with our data and technology piece, that has been really helpful to have those process models.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks, Deb. Are there any other questions? Okay, we have 10 minutes left in the meeting, so let me just try something. I lost my cursor. So what I would encourage you is to go to the web page for our focus group. It's on WEF's platform under Utility Management Community. You can post questions and comments. You can email me. We can try to answer your questions and hear your concerns. So what is left is there's a little bit of a Mentimeter poll that we have, and I will try to do this. Originally, I had planned to do it through Mentimeter, but I will try to include it into this Teams, which I've tried. That's my first live application of this. Give me just a second. Mentimeter. Okay, so I will stop sharing. So please let me know if you are seeing the in the window from the Mentimeter.
We are.
Okay, so let me see. I think I can stop sharing here, and we will see the question, and on the right side, you should be able to have the, how should I say, the opportunity to respond. So if you look at that to the right of your screen, you should be able to vote. And I can see that some of you have already voted. Okay, we're getting more people to vote. I'll just give it a minute or two. And we have 2 other questions. We're going to use this feedback to determine how to shape our future activities, events, and so forth. If anybody has let me see. If anybody has a comment, you can also put it in the chat line if this is not working properly for you. So we're getting some good responses here. So I will. Yes.
Were you trying, if you're trying to show the responses, what we see right now is just about Mentimeter using cookies.
Mentimeter using cookies. Okay, let me see. Why? Because
I can see it just fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
once
sorry.
you accept or reject cookies, then that goes away and you can see the results.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So I will go to the next.
We had to do it. Oh, that was weird.
Okay. So this is an open thing, and if you can just type in your comments in terms of what would you see as benefits of this approach based on what you know and what you see as a positive. So you can, as you start entering things, they should be popping up on the screen. Let's see, give it just a minute, and then we have just one more question after that before we exhaust our time. Collaboration. Okay, good, good. We have 1 response. Let's see if we can get a few more. More case histories like today's. We have 19 case studies from the Water Research Foundation projects, and so if you'd like to learn about those case studies, please just send me an email, because I can you can and I will post in the website. I will post on the website from WEF what how you can get to these things. Peer support is really a good point, and I have to say that in these projects, that this was an effort that took 4 years on the Water Research Foundation, another 2 years with Water Environment Federation, and more than 100 people from 24 utilities have participated and shared. So that was really, really good. So let me just go to the last slide. If you can vote in terms of planning future events, what would work best? Is it virtual meetings like this one today, in-person meetings at conferences, or in-person workshops at conferences, or workshops hosted by a utility, which would not be tied to a conference schedule. So if we can get some of the responses here, it will really help us plan our future activities. And I'll give just a minute here. We have 3 minutes left. I don't want to abuse your time, so we'll collect the input with this. And then I also want to say, I see that a couple of people had to leave, probably had other meetings scheduled. I appreciate everybody's participation. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop recording, and we'll